pioneers in the fight to legalize marijuana. Walter Tucker, the Church of the Universe founder in the 1960s, has died. He was 79. He died of heart failure Thursday at Hamilton General Hospital. The bearded pot promoter made headlines as he defended himself and other members of his Church of the Universe over drug charges. Tucker called himself a reverend of the church, and the church's co-founder, Michael Baldasaro, was known as a brother. The pair was also known for their squabbles with municipalities where they had set up camp. After being evicted from the Emico foundry in Guelph in 1998, the pair came to Cambridge, where they moved into the derelict Conmet foundry on Margaret Avenue in the Preston area of Cambridge. The bearded maestros of pot sparked concern among politicians and some neighbors, who followed Guelph's lead and explored ways to run the pair out of town. They refused to budge. 9 months later, the dispute was resolved when a mysterious fire gutted the building and Tucker moved to Hamilton. Tucker also made headlines in 1999 at the second annual Cannabis Carnival in Kitchener's Victoria Park. He openly lit what looked and smelled like a marijuana cigarette and invited the crowd to join him. About 25 people took him up on the offer. While Waterloo Regional Police were visible throughout the event, they weren't around when Tucker smoked the illegal weed, and he wasn't charged. Born in the Mennonite farming town of Rosthern, Sask, Tucker was one of 9 children. His father, Walter Adam Tucker, was a lawyer and judge, but is probably best known for serving as MP for Rosthern for 11 years, starting in the 1930s. Later, he led the Saskatchewan Liberal Party, serving as opposition leader. Tucker tried to follow his father's footsteps. He ran as an independent in Hamilton West in the 1988 federal election and as a Libertarian in Wellington County. Tucker probably learned the law from his father. His abilities as a self-taught lawyer were known in the courts, as he won some cases, and lost others. In 2010, Tucker and Baldasaro lost their attempt to have their marijuana trafficking convictions heard by the Supreme Court of Canada. The court dismissed an application for leave to appeal convictions from 2007 in Hamilton. In 2007, the pair was convicted after selling small quantities of pot to an undercover police officer posing as a new church member. Baldasaro was sentenced to 2 years in prison and Tucker was sentenced to 12 months. Michael A. James Baldasaro, May 23, 1949, June 9, 2016, was a Canadian political and religious figure from Hamilton, Ontario. He presided over a religious sect known as the Church of the Universe. Baldasaro received significant media coverage over his lifetime for his advocacy on behalf of marijuana legalization, as well as his status as a perennial candidate in numerous Hamilton area elections. Baldasaro was a member of the Church of the Universe, where he was commonly known as Brother Michael. The church has been in existence since 1969, when it was founded by the late Walter Tucker, and Baldasaro remained continuously active in its operations. Its members use marijuana as a sacrament and previously operated from the church headquarters, an abandoned rock quarry near Puslinch, Ontario. The quarry was named Clearwater Abbey, which church members called a beautiful oasis where they could practice naturism and cultivate marijuana. In 2004, after selling small amounts of marijuana on multiple occasions to an undercover police officer at their Barton Street, Hamilton residence, Baldasaro and Tucker were arrested and charged with trafficking. In 2007, they pleaded not guilty to the charges, but after a lengthy trial, a jury found them both guilty. At their sentencing hearing in April 2008, Baldasaro, who had 12 previous trafficking convictions, was sentenced to a 2-year penitentiary term while Tucker was sentenced to a 1-year reformatory term. The Crown also applied to the court to have the property from which they distributed marijuana and their church forfeited to the federal government as an offense-related property, and the Crown's application was granted. Baldasaro, a perennial candidate, saw his support peak in 1988, when he was the sole opponent of incumbent Mayor Bob Morrow. He received over 7,500 votes, which was approximately 10% of the vote. Baldasaro stood in the 2004 Ward 2 by-election, following the resignation of Andrea Horwath, and placed 7th out of 11 candidates with 52 votes. In 2006, Baldasaro again ran for mayor of Hamilton and received 4,520 votes or 3.61% of the total vote. Baldasaro ran for parliament 3 times. In 1984, Baldasaro received 300 votes as a Libertarian candidate in the federal riding of Hamilton West. In 2000, Baldasaro won 573 votes as a Marijuana Party of Canada candidate in Hamilton East. In 2004, Baldasaro received 345 votes as an independent candidate in Hamilton Centre. In 2006, Baldasaro again ran for mayor of Hamilton and received 4,520 votes or 3.61% of the total vote. Baldasaro also announced he would be a candidate for the Progressive Conservative Leadership Convention in 1998. He developed a plan to revitalize the party's flagging poll numbers by encouraging direct democracy, pardoning individuals convicted on marijuana possession, cutting government pensions and making the words to O Canada gender neutral. Baldasaro was forced to withdraw when he could not meet the filing fee and threatened legal action against the party when they refused to waive $30,000 entrance fee. 2 years later, in 2000, Baldasaro attempted to join the Canadian Alliance leadership race. His plans again involved legalizing marijuana, but this time also favored abolishing political parties altogether. He openly admitted that the challenge was mostly for publicity, and that he did not expect to win against the likes of Preston Manning or Stockwell Day. He was dissuaded, once more, by the party's $25,000 leadership nomination fee. In 2007, Baldasaro started a campaign to save Hamilton's Centre Mall from conversion into a power centre operated by Smart Centres. In 2007, during Hamilton City Council's debate over the renovation of City Hall, Baldasaro and Tucker sent a letter addressed to Mayor Fred Eisenberger and City Council, requesting they move municipal operations to Stelco Tower, in Hamilton's downtown core. Baldasaro was a candidate for the 2010 Hamilton municipal elections, once again running for mayor. He finished 4th in a field of 15 candidates, with 2.05% of the vote. In the 2014 Hamilton municipal elections, Baldasaro stood for mayor and finished with 2.87% of the vote in a field of 12 candidates. Baldasaro died of cancer on June 9, 2016, aged 67. Cannabis in Canada is legal for both recreational and medicinal purposes. Medicinal use of cannabis was legalized nationwide on July 30, 2001 under conditions outlined in the Marijuana for Medical Purposes Regulations, later superseded by the Access to Cannabis for Medical Purposes Regulations, issued by Health Canada, and seed, grain, and fiber production was permitted under license by Health Canada. The Federal Cannabis Act came into effect on October 17, 2018 and made Canada the second country in the world, after Uruguay, to formally legalize the cultivation, possession, acquisition and consumption of cannabis and its byproducts. Canada is the first G7 and G20 nation to do so. Cannabis was banned in Canada from 1923 until regulated medical cannabis became legal on July 30, 2001. In response to popular opinion, the legislation to legalize cannabis for recreational use, Cannabis Act, Bill C-45, was passed by the House of Commons of Canada on November 27, 2017. It passed second reading in the Senate of Canada on March 22, 2018. On June 18, 2018, the House passed the bill with most, but not all, of the Senate's amendments. The Senate accepted this version of the act the following day. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that recreational use of cannabis would no longer violate criminal law as of October 17, 2018. This legalization comes with regulations similar to that of alcohol in Canada, limiting home production, distribution, consumption areas and sale times. The process removed cannabis possession for personal consumption from the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, while implementing taxation and strengthened punishment of those convicted of either supplying cannabis to minors, or of impairment while driving a motor vehicle. As of January 2019, online sales of cannabis for recreational use were well underway across Canada, via the provincial or territorial governments. Most provinces also had storefront operations selling cannabis, either operated by the government or a private enterprise. The number of retailers is likely to remain limited. After the House of Commons passed Bill C-45, it was sent to the Senate. On June 1, 2018, the Senate passed an amendment to C-45 outlawing cannabis brand stretching. The amendment, which passed 34 to 28, outlaws the sale and display of cannabis-related merchandise and makes it difficult to publicly promote cannabis once legalized. Do note that this amendment was rejected House of Commons when the bill was returned to the House of Commons by the Senate and does not appear in the final version of C-45 that received royal assent. On June 19, 2018, the Senate finally passed the bill, without the amendment rejected by the House of Commons, and the Prime Minister announced the effective legalization date as October 17, 2018. Canada became the second nation, after Uruguay, to legalize the drug. As expected, the use of cannabis for recreational purposes became legal across the country on October 17, 2018, under the Cannabis Act, which creates a legal and regulatory framework for controlling the production, distribution, sale and possession of cannabis in Canada, according to a Government of Canada website. Persons aged 18 or older can possess up to 30 grams of dried or equivalent non-dried form in public. Adults are also allowed to make cannabis-infused food and drinks as long as organic solvents are not used to create concentrated products. Each household is allowed to grow up to 4 cannabis plants from licensed seed or seedlings, although Quebec and Manitoba chose to be excluded from this aspect of the legislation. Each province set its own procedures for retail sales, and these vary as to ownership or retail outlets, by the provincial government or private enterprise, but all include an option for online sales. Since marijuana is illegal in the U.S. per federal legislation, the government warned that previous use of cannabis, or any substance prohibited by U.S. federal laws, could mean that you are denied entry to the U.S. Canadians traveling within the country, but not internationally, are allowed to carry up to 30 grams of cannabis. Naturally, driving under the influence of drugs remained illegal. On May 1, 2019, Canada will introduce excise tax on all products containing THC, and introduce 3 new product classes for recreational sale. The 3 new classes include cannabis edibles, cannabis extracts and cannabis topicals. The late Michael Baldasaro and Walter Tucker pushed for marijuana legalization for decades now. The time has come and it's here. As of 2018, Canada is to become the second country in the world to fully legalize marijuana and the world's following. Download UNU, a song for this mission. Use during the process of legalization. Artist Charlie B. Song is called UNU. Free download.